Let's have a look at the four main sizes of ukulele and have a think about which one might be right for you. We'll have a look at all four together first, and then we'll take each in turn, exploring the pros and cons of each and listening to the tonal properties. And here we are, ta-da! The four main sizes of ukulele: soprano, concert, tenor and baritone. The soprano is the smallest and truest to the original form of the ukulele, which was developed from a tiny Portuguese instrument called the machete de Braga. Then we have the concert ukulele, slightly bigger again. The tenor, the biggest size in standard GCEA tuning, and then the big daddy of them all, the baritone ukulele. The size of the actual body of the ukulele can vary between manufacturers, and the depth of the ukulele this way. And you can even get different shaped ukuleles like this old Kamaka pineapple, which was made in the 1920s. In terms of the scale length, there can also be slight variations between manufacturers, but generally the scale length for soprano ukuleles tends to be around 14 inches. For concerts, it's 15 to 16 inches. For tenors, 17 to 18, and for baritones, anywhere between 19 and 21 inches. The first three, soprano, concert and tenor, all have standard GCEA tuning. The baritone is tuned a fifth below and has a deeper DGBE tuning. Just to warn you, you will hear all sorts of generalisations about ukulele sizes, particularly on the internet, and such things as you should start on a soprano and then work your way up to a tenor. But I prefer to think of them as tools for different things, or horses for courses. So let's start with the smallest size of all, the soprano. And again, don't be fooled by the idea that these are only for women or children or beginners. Some of the best ukulele players in the world, such as one of my favourites from Hawaii, Herb Ota, mainly played a soprano ukulele. What is true though, and is an advantage of the soprano, is that the string tension is really nice and low, so it's very easy to press down the strings for chords and notes. Because concerts and tenors have that longer scale, to get the strings up to pitch they have to be tighter, so the string tension is a little bit higher on concert and then higher again on a tenor ukulele. Another nice advantage to think of with the soprano ukulele is its portability. Because it's so small, it's really easy to carry about. It'll fit in a rucksack, you can take it on a plane nice and easily, so that's something to consider as well. Now, in terms of the size, because the scale is short, the frets are close together. Now, that can be a disadvantage when you're playing chords like this diminished seventh, where you really need to squish those fingers in. But it can actually be an advantage where you're playing stretchy chords like these, which can be a little bit trickier to do on a uke with a longer scale. One of the things that's often not mentioned in videos like this is the nut width. That's the distance this way across the ukulele, and that can make quite a big difference because you can get ukuleles with a wider or narrower nut width, which will give you a little bit more room to put those fingers in this way. A couple of challenges with sopranos. Because the frets are so close together up this end, it can be quite tricky to get your fingers in for those tough chords up the fretboard. And also sometimes the intonation can go off. That means that notes will get a little bit more sharp as you go up the fretboard in this direction. Another common complaint about sopranos is that the sustain isn't very long. That's how long the notes or chords ring out after you've strummed them. So it decays away slightly quicker than it will on a concert and then a tenor. But some people really like that short sustain, or choppy sound if you like, and it really suits old time and ragtime music, songs from the 1920s and 30s especially. all those kind of fast chord changes, the Fast and Furious songs, it sounds great for those. And it also sounds really lovely for that Hawaiian bubbly sound. And you can finger pick on this really nicely as well. So lots and lots of purposes you can use the soprano for. So sopranos, I love them. I think they're great. Let's take a look at the next size up, concert ukuleles. Next up we have the concert ukulele. Isn't this one blingy? This is my daughter's concert ukulele. Now concert ukuleles are often called the Goldilocks in terms of the scale length because it's not too short and not too long. It feels right for many people. Because of the longer scale, there's a bit more room between these frets. So if I was to show you that diminished chord that I did earlier on the soprano, notice that my fingers have that little bit more room now, which is nice. There's a little bit more string tension, but not as much as a tenor, so the chords and notes are still relatively easy to press down on this one as well. Generally on a concert there's a little bit more sustain as well, so when you strum those chords or play notes, they ring out that little bit longer than a soprano ukulele. Because of that medium string tension, I find these perfect strumming machines. So that kind of strumming way of playing sounds really, really nice on a concert. And gentle chuck strums, I'll teach you this later in the course, sound really nice on a concert size uke. Now I don't want to generalise too much, and it's really difficult to say which size ukulele fits which player because it depends on so many things like the size of the player, the size of their hands in particular, whether there's any arthritis or hand conditions that might affect things. So many personal preferences. But generally, if you do have any kind of arthritis or you have very small hands, the concert scale can be really nice because you have that little bit more room than a soprano, but you don't have the string tension of the tenor. A little bit of criticism that the concert scale sometimes gets is the fact that it's a little bit neither here nor there. It doesn't have that lovely choppiness of a soprano ukulele, but it doesn't have the long ringing sustain of a tenor ukulele. So some players prefer to have a tenor and a soprano rather than just one concert. Next up we have the biggest size ukulele in standard tuning, the tenor ukulele. This is my favourite scale just because you get that little bit more sustain. And notes really ring out for quite a while longer, and I really love that sound. Because of that sustain, it's really nice for chord melody work. I'll teach you how to do this in the intermediate and fingerstyle courses, and things like finger picking. Where you really want those notes to ring out. And of course you've got a lot more room up this end. So we can play right up here as well. Some people describe the sound when strummed as a bit tighter than that of the soprano and concert, not as relaxed, but it can sound really lovely too. In terms of the fret spacing, slightly larger again, and that's a real advantage where we have these squished up chords where you need to get your fingers in. There's a lot more room. The disadvantage is that some of those stretchy chords, now you have to stretch your finger that bit further, so that's something to consider as well. The strings are at a higher tension than sopranos and concerts, so some people can find the strings a little bit tougher on the fingers, a little bit harder to press down. But that can be negated with use of a thinner, lower tension string and a setup where the strings aren't too high off the fretboard. Next up we have the biggest size of all, the baritone ukulele. This one's tuned differently to the other ukuleles in a lower pitch, D, G, B and E. It's the same as the bottom 4 strings physically or the highest in pitch on a guitar. That can be a real advantage for guitarists because you can kind of think of the baritone as like a guitar missing the bass strings. So rather than playing like this for a G chord on guitar, on the baritone you only have to play like this. But one of the criticisms levelled at baritone ukuleles is that they're just a small guitar with 2 strings missing. But actually, having those 4 strings give it a unique sound. It's almost like halfway between a guitar and a ukulele, which is really, really beautiful in its own way. And if you listen to great players like Benny Chong, particularly playing jazz music on a baritone ukulele, it has such a warm, soothing tone. Jazz chords sound particularly superb and relaxed on the baritone ukulele, and that nice relaxed finger picking for Hawaiian songs. That can sound really lovely too. The other disadvantage is you need to learn a whole new load of chord shapes. Because of the lower tuning on the baritone, we have different shapes for the same chords. That's something to really consider if you're learning with a group, because you might be the odd one out in terms of your learning. It makes it difficult to learn in a group situation. And also there's just less written material for baritone ukulele than there is for standard tuned ukulele. However, if you're interested, I do have an entire course written specifically for baritone ukulele, going from the very basics to some really nice advanced finger picking. So I think we've covered all the bases there, but let's just have a listen to each ukulele in turn, playing exactly the same thing each time so you can hear the differences in tone and timbre. if you enjoy this short course, I have a whole 35-part beginner's course on my website, learnukulele.com, where you can check out more and become a really brilliant player. And of course, I'll see you in the next lesson very soon. Take care, folks, and Yukon.